الصبر نور ويقين لله در الصابرين. نعم الأخي ولا تهن أبدا وعزمك لا يلين.
الصبر نور ويقين
لله در الصابرين. نعم الأخي ولا تهن أبدا وعزمك لا يلين.
قدر من الله مضى فابسم إذا حل القضاء، لن يضيق بك الفضاء فالله مولاك المعين.
قدر من الله مضى فابسم إذا حل القضاء، لن يضيق بك الفضاء فالله مولاك المعين.
الصبر نور ويقين
لله در الصابرين. نعم الأخي ولا تهن أبدا وعزمك لا يلين. الصبر نور ويقين لله در الصابرين. نعم الأخي ولا تهن أبدا وعزمك لا يلين.
انظر بلاء الأنبياء يسمو بهم نحو العلا، فبهم يكون الاقتداء نعم الهداة المهتدين.
انظر بلاء الأنبياء يسمو بهم نحو العلا، فبهم يكون الاقتداء نعم الهداة المهتدين.
الصبر نور ويقين
لله در الصابرين. نعم الأخي ولا تهن أبدا وعزمك لا يلين. الصبر نور ويقين لله در الصابرين. نعم الأخي ولا تهن أبدا وعزمك لا يلين.
الله يعلم ما يكون والأمر في كاف ونون، فلا تهب ريب المنون واذكر يوفى الصابرون.
الله يعلم ما يكون والأمر في كاف ونون، فلا تهب ريب المنون واذكر يوفى الصابرون.
الصبر نور ويقين
لله در الصابرين. نعم الأخي ولا تهن أبدا وعزمك لا يلين. الصبر نور ويقين لله در الصابرين. نعم الأخي ولا تهن أبدا وعزمك لا يلين. أبدا وعزمك لا يلين. أبدا وعزمك لا يلين.
الحمد لله رب العالمين، الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Welcome to Islamic Oasis, brothers and sisters. Inshallah, today we are going to discuss Mali, and especially colonialism, not just in Mali, but across Africa in general. We are waiting for Sheikh Usman to get on. He's having some technical difficulties. He is in Mali, and Mali usually certain areas of the country does not have internet. So, and inshallah, we'll get into that too. Yani, a country with such wealth does not have internet in certain areas of the country. So inshallah, we will start with we're going to we change the setup a little bit so that it will be more a question answer between myself and Brother Zain, inshallah, regarding what has happened, what is going on in Mali, what is the political situation today in Mali, and where will we go from here, inshallah.
Okay, so Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. Okay, so the first question I want to ask, right, is What have your previous experiences been in Mali? First of all, like you have traveled to Mali, and
Yes.
how many times have you gone? When was the last time that you went?
Well, Mali, I've been to Mali once, and I spent a few days in Mali. I was with actually Sheikh Usman. That's why we were trying to bring Sheikh Usman on so we can discuss not only our experiences there, and he is in Mali now. So hopefully he gets on anytime. Secondly, you know, I was there because Islamic Oasis has few projects that are running over there from orphan projects that are going on over there and water projects and other things like this. But Mali, it was very interesting for me because me being from India, in the subcontinent, uh, the situation is a little bit tricky because the northern areas where you would call Timbuktu.
Yes.
Timbuktu areas are very much, a lot of people, like, for instance, Tabligh Jama is working there, mostly from Pakistan, and then you have other organizations and Islamic movements that are working in that area. So, and many people who are there working in that area, they look like me. So when I was in Central Africa, Central Mali, which is Bamako and these areas, obviously there is a certain taste amongst the people there that the French have make sure exist within the masses. And so
So just right there, like, what do you mean in terms of, like, what do you mean by that? There's a certain sentiment that the French, uh,
the
like, has
French,
instilled in the masses.
France is the colonizing power.
Yes.
France
It's
has basically taken over the country, wants to make sure that the country is divided, wants to make sure that the country's resources are in its hand. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But as far as so there's tension. There's a lot of tension that the French have created between the Muslims.
Yes. Okay.
And what they have termed, terrorism, what they have termed as, Muslim extremists and things like this.
Yeah, subhanallah, it's to, like, when I was making one of the advertisements for, or I was making the short video for that we posted on Instagram. I was watching one of the videos that you guys did. I think when it was you and Imam Usman when you were visiting Mali. So he was say it was a short video where I think it was Sheikh Usman. He was talking with one of the Mali citizens, and he's saying, like, okay, like, when he saw me, we saw that, like, that Sheikh Shirazi had a big beard, and he's like, these guys are Islamist people. So if at first they're like trying to keep a distance from them, they're like, there's tension there. But when he got to talk to them, then they were able to diffuse the situation. He was like, I'm from Mali, these are my people.
And
But that sentiment is there today, and it's by design.
Of course. And it happened a lot, not in just that. Almost any area that I went to Mali, in Mali, there was that fear just because of the way I look. And which is amazing, right? I mean, if you look at the level of decline, and this is what we're talking about, colonization. You have people that, the Muslims, between the Muslims there is fear, and what they have created basically is fear between the Muslims, and hatred between the Muslims, while France is all over the country with its army. We are there doing work, humanitarian work, while France is there with its army, literally raping the country. But the people are thought, because number one, they don't have access to many other languages other than French. So a lot of people only speak French. Yeah,
Really?
and it's something that they have done. So all the newspapers, for instance, are in French. Schools are in French, all kinds of stuff, so that people don't get outside information of what is really happening in the country and what France is doing in the country.
SubhanAllah. So just, I guess, some clarifying things. How long has France been in Mali? I know this is kind of just like a easy ball question, but just for just so everybody has a better understanding.
Since I think it's 1959. I mean, this is
okay. Look, 1960 is when Mali got its independence from being a French
of Mali, and
from being a French colony. So before that, it was a French colony.
France was there.
Yeah,
I don't think France is. They've been there since you know,
Early 20th century.
early 20th century, fall of the Khilafah, the complete disintegration of Africa, creation of different countries. Till now, for instance, now they are still planning to even divide Mali within different regions, depending on the wealth, where the wealth is in the country. So that's another thing, and I was talking, and I was looking into that. For instance, if you look at, there is a article here. It's called "The French Colonial Designs in Mali," and this was just it's on Al Jazeera, and it's actually was written August 2019, 22nd, 29, and it says something. Look, it says here, on paper, the French military is currently in the country to fight terrorism and help it regain its authority over the northern regions. But of course, the real reason behind Paris' decision to continue risking the lives of French soldiers in a faraway country is to protect French economic and geostrategic interests, namely its exploitation of the gold and uranium mines in the region.
Yeah, subhanAllah. It's like when you look at some of the numbers that are like associated with the statistics, like I think it was something like 40% of France's nuclear energy, and a lot of their country is powered by nuclear energy.
Yeah.
It comes directly from West Africa, from places like Mali,
Algeria, Mali, all of this is West Africa. And when you look at it, says, look, another thing, and this is by the Federation, it's an International Federation of Human Rights. And in that, it says Mali remains, and first of all, it's third, as far as how much gold this country produces, right? You're looking at the third richest, and third most gold producing country in the world. Number 3.
SubhanAllah.
Right?
Yeah.
And although it's three, the amount of gold that the country produces, but yet in all of these aspects, the contribution of mining sector to Malian development has been negligible, when not negative. It says here, Mali remains poor, very poor, nearly the poorest of countries. It ranks 175th amongst 177 countries in terms of human development, though it is the third gold producer in the continent.
Yeah.
Its per capita GNP is equal to USD $380 a year. This is what people make, right? Whereas the average in sub-Saharan Africa is $745. Behind this economic data lies a social reality made up of daily violations of many basic human rights, especially in their economic and social dimensions. Nearly 1/3 of the population is underfed. Less than 1 out of 2 persons has access to drinking water. Just 1 out of 5 persons can read and write. More than 1 out of 10 babies die before the age of 1, and life expectancy is 48 years old. So most people die before they even reach 50, in a country that is the third gold producer in the continent.
It's very like it's very harrowing. This is a complete myth by that's like is there in the capitalist system, that that the needs are like unlimited, but the resources and the way that we want to fulfill those needs, they're limited. So that basically there isn't enough to go around for everybody. Well, so that there's going to be people who are in this situation regardless, and there's nothing we can do about it. This complete.
This is the game the capitalists are playing around the world, right? And this is the game that the West in general is playing. One thing that we have to be very clear: whenever they're talking about terrorism, wherever they're talking about extremism, wherever they're talking about resistance, we have to right away know that there are resources there that the West needs. So exploitation must happen. So in order for that to happen, see, anywhere there is resistance, okay. For instance, I'll give you an example. In another place, one of the articles that I was just reading is talking about how, because of lack of healthcare, right? Because of lack of healthcare, lack of education, lack of resources given to those people who are actually working in the mines, there's a lot of resistance, and there's a lot of hate that's there towards the foreign corporations that are working there, right? So when people take a stand and when they resist what is actually happening, right away, those people are put in the category of this, that, or the other. And then
Dissident.
yes, dissidents. There is oh, this person supports terrorism, this person this and that, and then they are either removed or just never to be seen or jailed, things like this. So this is when you're talking about exploitation, you can't even imagine the level of exploitation in a country that is so darn rich.
Those are like it's really like when you think about the like those, I guess, okay, if I was speaking as somebody who's like I've lived my whole life in the US, right? I was born here. Those, when you take these things into perspective, all of these things, like somebody who's, this is their reality, that they see this every single day. They know exactly what the effect of these companies, of the exploitation of the country, is doing to their family members, their friends, the people that they love. And it's only normal that
See,
they
the
would
thing
have
is,
that.
most of the people don't even realize this.
Mm.
Yani, who is reading? For instance, if I'm reading this thing here. It says Federation of International Human Rights. For instance, this is actually produced by French. It's actually French organization for human rights, right? Who goes and actually figures out what is actually happening? Who is studying these things, right? Who understands the effects of colonialism on the masses? I mean, you look at here, it says, look, this is what we have been taught, right? What we have been fed for the last century is that Africa is poor, right? There are no resources there. People don't have any skills there. There is nothing, it's just Africa is just poor. This is what we know, right? That's what
And
the
this
whole
is
world. Africa is poor. Now, here's the thing. This is February 2021, this year. Look what it says. Mali gold production hits fresh high in 2020. And look, it says here, Mali's industrial gold production reached 65.2 tons. 65.2 tons in 2020. 110 is 1,000 kilograms. 1,000 kilograms is 1 ton. When you're talking about 65.5 or 2 tons in just 1 year, right? You can't even these numbers. And if you go,
it's insane. I mean, it's like, subhanAllah, I mean, the richest person who ever existed in human history was from Mali, wasn't he? Mansa Musa. He was ruling Mali.
There was also gold.
Yeah,
right? He was taking gold out everywhere and giving. And if you look at the reason I'm sharing all this information before I because there's a, we can discuss this also from the perspective of Islam, is that what colonization did was literally foreign, or especially Western colonial powers, namely in the case of Africa, France, in West Africa, France comes in, for instance, kills 1 million people in Algeria, right? 1 million people in Algeria. And right now in Sahel area, which we call Sahel, which is northern Syria, northern Mali, these areas.
It's more of desertish region, right? The south is more lush.
Well, south is lush. Yes, south is where the greenery is and all that. So that you have that Niger River that goes all the way, right? It goes all the way up through most of the major cities and things like this. So, but the thing is that you have some of the most major companies are there and are millionaires, right? If not billionaires.
Yeah.
You look at,
but the idea, we still have we are fed the idea, and it's important to say, it's like it is being fed. There's no thinking going on there. Like we're fed the idea that people who are in Africa, the situation in Africa where there's a lot of poverty, this is because of some type of issue that they have done themselves, that they do not have the ability to do it themselves. This is the idea that is kind of fed to American masses.
So somebody else has to go and do it.
Yeah, right, because they're not able to do it themselves. So this big brother from France is going to come and help them out.
I mean, when you're talking about numbers, look at this. 1 kilogram is worth $45,400. 1 kilogram.
Yeah.
Right? Now imagine
2 pounds.
2 pounds. And then imagine 1,000 kilograms, which is 1 ton. You times $45,000 or $46,000 times 1,000, times 59 point whatever tons.
Yeah.
Right? imagine what, and then these are, and we're talking about, for instance, in this case here, we're talking about regions. You look at here, it happened again, second nugget weighing 2.7 kilograms worth 122,500. And it goes on. So now when you go into the actual numbers, companies are making, look at this here, at current prices, that would be 140 million in gross revenue for a year for a 12 million firm. And the company's estimate resources where the gold nuggets were just unearthed of 2.2 million ounces. You can't imagine this stuff, akhi. Yani, look, because I have been there, right?
Different.
When you are there, and when you're seeing the conditions of the people, when you are seeing things like people are dying before they hit the age of 50 years old, there is no healthcare, kids. Yani, imagine, I don't know what were the numbers. Yani, we were talking about, yeah. Look at this here, man. I mean, you're looking at 10 babies die, one out of 10 babies die before the age of 1, right? And you look at those numbers and then you say, okay, where is that wealth going? Who is it going to? So Italians are there.
Because normally you think about the wealth, like, if a country has so much wealth, right, then you would think that some of this should go to things that people are going to use, healthcare, infrastructure, access to like water, just
none of it.
Basic things, but they are not. But still, this is the situation.
Look, I'll give you by design. And actually here it says here, look, I wanted to read something here.
Yeah.
Look at this. Supposedly they were helping them build schools, right? You're talking about after taking millions of dollars in profits, right? These guys, they built, it says here, thus in the newly built schools, okay, and classrooms, there are more than 100 children per class. 100 children per class, which is the standard in Mali today. These conditions are far from complying with the children's right to education. Yani, and look at here, how many schools did they build? Supposedly altogether 4 or 5 schools that they built with the money. They gave them $250,000 is what they gave them. And half of that money went to a mayor of one of the cities, and then 2 other regions, and then generous. Very generous amounts that they gave. And now think about this for a second. Who in the world talks about education and women's rights, right to education for girls, and right? Who does that? It's the West, right?
Yeah.
So I think the Muslims have to wake up and really, smell the coffee or smell the blood in this case, to realize that when the West is talking about education, when the West is talking about, the same thing US has done. You look at Afghanistan, for instance. You look at and say, okay, well, you guys are talking so much about education and about educating the
human
girls.
Rights.
Well, let's see, how many schools did you build throughout Afghanistan? Show us. 500 schools, 1,000 schools. You were there 20 years. 20 years, how many did you build? Maybe 100, 200, 300 schools a year. I mean, the country is huge. You got 40 million people. So you want to make sure that you were so adamant about educating the masses. Well, let's see, what did you do? You couldn't even barely get out of Kabul.
Yeah.
Right. And let's say, what did you do in Kabul? How many universities did you open in Kabul? Show us. 10, 15, 20. How many universities? Where are they?
What are the quality of the education?
And here you're stealing the wealth of the people, right? And if somebody who's educated enough says something against what's happening, is considered extremist, to the point that in one of the articles he was talking about in Senegal, right, next door to Mali, basically.
Okay.
It's talking about people who are educated, who are thinkers, who do understand the situation. Those people were calling for a revolt because the French were doing the same thing in Senegal, and they were giving the example of what has happened in Mali, so that so they can wake up their own people and say that, look, listen, these people are not here to help us.
Yeah,
they don't care about anything about what you have to do.
It's not like it's not like some country, some nation, some superpower from hundreds of thousands of miles away is just going to come over there just to help you out.
Look at this. Here, look. In Mali, mine employees are for the most part specialized skilled workers benefiting in the main sites from gold safely, wage conditions, right? Look, yet workers' rights are still being violated. Limitations imposed on the right of association, insufficient access to health infrastructure, and qualified health staff on the mining site, non-payment of production houses, bonuses, no bonuses, non-payment of production bonuses. Yani, which means that people are not even being paid for what they have been promised. And number two, look here, right to health. It says the opening of the mines brought with it considerable development of HIV/AIDS, not considerable development of hospitals and schools. HIV/AIDS in the regions involved as a consequences of growth of prostitution around the sites in the case of Morilla, which is another area over there. This is what they brought to people of Mali. HIV
the result.
and
It's
AIDS.
not because I mean, one way a person like the West could spin it, or like somebody who is, for whatever reason they have some type of whatever, they could spin it in a way where it's like, okay, these mines are open up, this is stirred development, right? Because if you look at maybe the top 10 companies in Mali, maybe they've like produced. I mean, you were showing the article where it's just like there's been a great boom in gold like this past year, right?
And it's going to be
top
continuously
companies
grow.
are going to have incredible gains. So it's going to look like a great thing for the country that they're developing like quicker, right?
No.
But still, this is the reality.
Look
Nothing
here.
has
Here's
changed.
what it said. The reality is this: an economic sector of no profit to the Malian population. This resource that the people of Mali have brings no profits, brings no resources, brings nothing to the people of Mali themselves. And look here. It says the international financial institutions, followed by the Malian government, had high expectations that the growth of mining sector would be a source of development for Mali. In turn, it turns out that this sector has hardly any impact on the overall economic development of the country and in the improvement of the population's living conditions. Can you imagine that this is explained by the numbers of factors and what aimed at exporting? So most of what happens here is exported. So everything, literally rape of the country, literally. And he says by structural shortcomings of Malian economy, literally what happens is that it is taken, exported to other countries.
SubhanAllah, they don't even try to hide these things. I was reading a quote from a former French prime minister. I can't remember the name, to be honest, but he blatantly said, like, most of the wealth that we have as a country comes from Mali, comes from these West African countries that we had, they continue to have investment in, and that they're
if you look at actually, on the top of that, the reasons why most of the money from the Muslim world, whether it's Africa or whether it's Middle East, anywhere, it goes to major banks, right? Where is it going? It's going to New York and it's going to London, because they've created such instability in the countries, right? These countries, they're so unstable that people worry that their money in the banks within their own countries, their money is not safe. So they try to do whatever they can. So what really happens is not only the resources of the country is leaving the country, but even the money that the people are making, even the so-called the elite who are benefiting, the few elite, 2%, 3% elite, even their money does not stay in the country. Rather, it leaves and goes to the other banks, London and New York, and then London and New York uses that money to give it out to its own businesses as loans to develop their own countries. I mean,
it's really like a syringe, blood syringe, taking out, drawing blood.
That's it. That's why I'm using the word. I am constantly using the term raping the country. What France is doing in the case of Mali, right?
This is destructive. This is destructive, and it's causing pain. It's causing death. It's causing just complete destruction. So I want to say one of the questions that one of our viewers are asking, right? It's someone has an interesting question. Did the same situation occur when Muslims ruled African countries when they came in? When the Muslim powers of the world, when they had, I guess you could say, kind of control over the African countries, West African countries. Mali was like has an extensive history in the world of the in Islamic history. So what was the situation then? Was it similar
See,
to how it is
most
today?
of the people when they see it's they don't understand colonialism, and they don't understand when you talk about capitalism, right? Or when you talk
Yeah.
about empires versus the Khilafah, right? When the Muslims came with a message, and the message of the Muslims was not there to go and exploit people. So the first thing is when the Muslims went and the Muslim lands expanded, and the Muslims came from the rest from whether it was from Medina, wherever, when they came, they brought the message of Tawheed. That's number one. And number two, the Khilafah system is a system where the wealth of the people is actually distributed, right? It's once the Khilafah expands, wherever it expands, those people who are living in those lands actually become the citizen of the state. Then they have the same right as any Muslim, whether he's in Medina, whether he's sitting in Egypt, whether they're sitting in India or Pakistan or Afghanistan. Yani because when you're talking about the Khilafah, because the Khilafah was half of the world,
Yeah.
if not 80%, 50% of the world. So there is no, this concept is not like the empires, and it's not the concept of colonialism. You're not going to exploit the people, take their wealth and take it to your countries, to your capitals.
So
No.
I guess you could say from foundational perspective, right? The situation that the capitalists, that the colonialists have had for 100 years, right? And that this is the way that they've I guess come into these countries, right?
I mean,
like
look,
Mali.
keep saying
It's foundationally different from how the Islamic system is run.
Yeah, fundamentally different.
Yeah,
right?
so it's not
You
not
can't
really
compare it. So when you compare it, most
Yeah.
people who are, and if anybody's doing it, they obviously don't understand the economic system of Islam and how what it means when we
Yeah,
say
I
that
mean,
Islam is a
yeah.
see, that one thing that again we have to understand is because when we sometimes the people say the Islamic empire, the Muslim empire, you have to understand the difference between empire and again Khilafah. When Roman Empire existed, the Romans would take the resources that any country that they took over, they would leave the country completely, destroyed, and they would take the resources of their country and go back to Rome. Rome was the city. But in Khilafah, you actually know that the Khilafah, even the capital of Islamic State, moved to different parts of the world of the Khilafah, right?
Yeah.
One time it was in Medina, one time it was in Kufa, then it moved to Damascus, then it moved to Istanbul. So it was not, and it moved to Baghdad. So it's not that there's one city and the wealth is coming to that city, and that city is just becoming filthy rich, while the rest of the surrounding, the whole so-called empire is completely dead and struggling and under burden of taxes and complete oppression. No. So there's a big difference between empire and the Khilafah, and there's a very big difference why we go and take the message of Islam to humanity, whether it's Africa, whether it's West or the East. We do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to expand, to bring justice. Islam, this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah, the law of Allah is implemented, not law of human beings, where human beings are exploited for the sake of to exploit them, to rape them, to take their resources, and if you don't need them, get rid of them. So people need to be very careful in how they when they discuss the growth of Islam and expansion of Islam versus expansion of these empires.
Yeah, excellent answer.
One of the things, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's like this is the way that it's like, I mean, it's even taught in history classes to I don't know if this is, I mean, if I had to guess, I'm sure it would be intentional. I mean, it's just like jahu, like ignorant behavior, right? Whenever you talk about even the Ottoman Empire is discussed, right? It's always called the Ottoman Empire. It's not called the Uthmani Khilafat. It's talking about like the Abbasid Empire. Like sometimes they do use the word caliphate, right? But it's like it's just the association is there in the minds of like many
when
people.
It suits them, right? So if they're talking about, let's say, some organization that came out of Syria, and other, they'll say, "Oh, the caliphate." This is what they'll do. And then when you're talking about the Abbasid, and when they're talking about the Uthmani Khilafah or the Umayyad, Bani Umayyah or the Khilafah Rashidun, they will not say this. And think about it. If somebody, people, if you're going to say, when Umar ibn Khattab, he takes over Syria and he takes over Persia, right?
Yes.
Faris. during his Khilafah. What happened to Faris and what happened to Sham? Yani Sham became one of the most developed areas in the Muslim world.
Yeah.
Right? Damashq became the center of education. You go to Persia, you look at what happened to Persia. Some of the most amazing scholars have come out of Persia.
Yeah, so it was a
Some of the
real
most amazing.
development. It was real development under the time where it's like
Akhi,
it was under
most of
Khilafah.
the frontline country cities, what they call I don't know what the terminology is, but like where the frontier,
Okay,
the
yeah.
frontier lands or the frontier.
No, you called it frontier,
right?
Yeah.
Frontiers were the most developed. Baghdad, for instance, if you look at Baghdad, what is the history of Baghdad? Baghdad was, Samarra or Baghdad, all this. But when you look at these countries, that the cities, that the way most of the frontier cities were they became the richest cities,
Yeah.
and most of the scholars were sent to these areas to teach the people Islam.
SubhanAllah.
Yani, why would be? You tell me, are the French coming in and teaching the Muslims of Mali how to become the greatest people? How to come and move. Imagine this for a second. A nation like the Muslim nation who goes and expands the Muslim lands and teaches those people Islam, and tells them that if you are better than us, then our capital will move to you. If you are the most knowledgeable people, then the capital will no longer doesn't deserve to be here. It will be in wherever we are.
Yeah, where the growth is happening.
Not only where the growth is happening, where wherever is needed.
Yes,
you can call it growth, you can call it, but imagine that for a second, for one moment, where it's not about exploitation of the areas of the world for your own city. Rather, you are willing to move your capital to that area and say, we are here to serve humanity.
Yeah,
right.
It's completely different type of situation. We were talking about before, for 100 years, for example, France has been in Mali, and this is the situation that we were
100 students per classroom. These are the people who are supposed to educate. They're there to care for the people. $250,000,
and I'm sure
out
there are
of
a lot
millions that they are rating from each region of the country. Yani, I'll give you some of the numbers. And look at this. It says here, the Malian society is aware of the neo-colonial plan afoot to divide Mali in an attempt to claim ownership of its vast resources. Images from 2015 protest in which Malians burned the French flag and brandished posters, Holland equals MNLA, are making rounds on Malian social media once again. The anti-France feeling is not restricted to Mali only, but it is prominent across French-speaking West Africa, with citizens frequently taking to the streets to tell Paris that they want old colonialists to leave their country.
Okay, yeah, this is actually another question that I had. Is this situation unique to Mali, or is it spread among the other?
Oh no, countries? This is and look to answer that. It says here, just last month in Senegal, a country neighboring Mali, across an activist named Guy Marius Sagna, the leader of the movement called FRAPP, right? It says here that was arrested over a Facebook post claiming that France is psychologically preparing people in Senegal to live with the idea of terrorist threat to legitimize its military presence on the continent.
Yeah.
The post that got Segna in trouble was alluding to the example of Mali, where the pressure of the French army brought nothing more than disorder and division.
And this is typical for France. Like, this is the romantic French idea, right? That they had freedom, that they had basically that they loved life. But this is the reality, rather. For someone is being arrested over a Facebook post.
This is the freedom of speech.
In their colony.
This is the freedom of speech in their colony. This is this is what they want. This is how they educate the people, meaning that you can't even say that you are oppressing us. You don't have the right to even express yourself. They didn't do anything else other than put it on paper, right? And how many people can actually even put it on paper? Because many people are illiterate. Cannot read and write.
So they understand these things, but in terms of telling it to other people or getting people to think about it further and understand just the depth of it,
they can't understand.
They might not be able to do that.
I mean, so this is, when we're talking about, that's why I always, mention to the people that, look, we, the Muslims, we need to also produce scholars who have studied political economy, who have studied history, who have studied colonialism. Colonialism is a subject that needs to be seriously looked into, and they have, of course,
Yeah.
But the thing is, because we don't understand what the West is about, or at least the masses, right? If you look at, for instance, Egypt, which is also again in Africa, you look at Egypt and you look at just the recent founding of, they just found almost, I think it says close to 20 million or 200 million, sorry, 200 million new barrels of oil. They found certain areas where now has that much oil, and the estimate is about 200 million barrels of oil. 50% of it will go to one of the Italian companies that is going to come and do the digging and do the whole filtration process and build the thing.
Yeah.
Now you ask a question, where are, why is it that the Muslims of Egypt don't have the know-how? They don't know how to build this type of infrastructure. They don't know how to build industry that knows how to produce or to dig or to
build
extract oil from the ground.
Good
This is
oil
their
wells, oil rigs.
50% of that wealth is going to somewhere else.
Yeah.
And out of that, most likely 25, 30, 40% will go to the supposed it will go to the army, and the rest will go to the politicians who will eat it to support the army. And it will go, nothing will go to the people themselves. Right?
Yeah.
And what colonialism did, we need to understand this, what colonialism did in every single region that they were in, it created a class. It created a class that would do the bidding for the colonialists, whether they were the elites, whether they were landowners, whether they were these corporate entities and corporate owners of private entities. They built them, they created them in order, basically, and they fed them.
Yeah, because it allows their machine to run
Their
like with
interest.
grease in
Right.
it.
Literally, this is what is happening, and they're so good at it. They figured out how to do. They just copy paste it everywhere. They have standardized colonization.
Okay, so here's a question right here, right? While we're talking about this specific subject, one of the viewers is asking, there's two questions. One is how's the education system of Mali? And the follow-up question would be, would you say that the current generation there understands that they are being colonized? I guess let's start with the first part, because the first part is also going to answer the second part of the question. How is the education system in Mali? We did talk about how some of these NGOs are setting up these, frankly, bogus schools with $250 budgets.
$250,000.
250,
right?
Yeah.
See, now imagine this for a second. If you have 100 students per class,
How much
Right.
will you be able to teach? How much is
and
each
you have
kid
one
going to
teacher,
absorb?
here in the US, I mean, if you want to give it the right, if you want to give it the right measure, I think what the standard in this country is, if you're doing tutoring, it's one teacher per 5 students.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
One teacher per 5 students. If you're tutoring, this is how it's supposed to be. That is what builds, or that's what quality means. Right? If you look at American, classrooms, how many classrooms per student? How many students per classroom? You've got school here. How many do you see?
It's like roughly well, I mean,
30, 40. Okay.
Yeah, 20.
Right. And then in those cases, sometimes you find 2 teachers per classroom. Right. You're talking about 100 students in a classroom that barely has any resources. Right. Teachers, on the top of that, teachers who themselves are not educated. Right. The quality of education is not there, period. And whatever education is there is only there to basically create
that class that you were talking about.
First of all, most of those people who are the elite, they don't study in Mali. None of their children study in Mali.
Okay, well, it's good that we make that distinction.
All of them are in France, or they're in England, or they're here in the United States. They're studying here. They have those resources here. Then they are trained here. They're groomed here, and then they're sent back to rule Mali and to basically take care of it for them.
Yeah.
Right. They take care of it for them. That's what that class, that so-called educated class, is supposed to do.
Okay, so how about the also like what would the curriculum kind of look like? Like, I mean, is there any information that
And check this
like,
out, right?
from your experience?
Most of these schools that I visited when I was there,
Yes.
most of the schools are run by Christian missionaries,
Okay.
right? On the top of what they've already created, like
Similar to a lot of other situations around the globe.
right? So now you have same thing that's happening, for instance, in the Rohingya camps.
Yeah.
You see that, where you have, and in Bangladesh and many other places where, schools are set up and run by missionaries. So me and Sheikh Osman, I remember we went to so many schools. We were visiting school after school after school after school, and and you find literally missionaries running the schools, right? And you find, like I gave this example before. It was funny for me to just see. I went into one of the classrooms, and you see even in the front of the classroom on the wall, you see pictures of French marbles.
Yeah,
right.
I saw that video.
You saw that video, and
Yeah.
I was talking about that. Said, like, what was the point of that?
It
What is the
was
point of that?
it was so random. It was like just a chalkboard, everything written in French, like obviously since everybody is speaking French at this point, right? And above the board, there's a picture of this blonde French woman,
Right.
which is there's nothing else there. No, like
Yeah, what
other
does
type
that?
of
What does
posters.
that even have to do with the culture of the people, the tradition of the
This is
people?
what a good person is. The best
This is-
person is.
So basically, and on the top of that is that they have created this beauty myth, right? Okay, Western person, Western, white, blue eyes, that's beauty, and everybody else is just, you can't match. So don't
Yeah.
even try, right? I mean, literally a psychological, creating psychological barriers, showing. I mean, these are being done systematically to show to the people that you can't hang with us. You
Yeah.
can't ever reach to our realities, right? You can't come. You just can't happen.
Speaking about realities, right? Like, okay, the outward look in that they like basically sell this and push this upon like the Malians, that this is what the ideal person looks like, right? Okay, this is if that's not what it's being said, right? But that being posted above a class, the chalkboard to a bunch of kids, okay, this is what they're going to absorb. This is what they're going to learn,
I
right?
mean,
But in terms of sorry, not to cut you off.
No,
Sheikh.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Do what you.
In terms of like the ideas, right? Is the same thing done with like, okay, we're talking about like how a person looks, physical appearance, but in terms of ideas like the colonial system, the capitalist system, I guess to go back to the question that we were talking about before, do people understand that they're being colonized? Like from the mass majority of the people, right? The people who are working in these mines. I mean, they
Look,
they have
this
to
is why,
understand this.
See, that's
but-
what I'm saying. I mean, if you look at, I'm just actually reading the it says that the Malian society is aware
Yes.
of the neo-colonial plan afoot to divide Mali in an attempt to claim ownership of vast resources. Right? Images from 2015 protests in which Malians burned the French flag
Yeah.
and varnished posters. It says Holland equals MNLA are making rounds on Malian social media once again. This is and then anti-France feelings are not restricted to just Mali, but it's all over the France. And look, this has been there all over, right?
Yeah.
Like, keep something in mind. When I said, look, Algeria, we're talking about 1 million people killed in Algeria, right? That's not something that just happened yesterday. It happened the last 40, 50 years that has been going on. So the people who are aware, they are aware, they do understand.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are many who don't understand, right? And that's also in many ways our own fault. Because look, for us, you have, so even when Islam is the biggest threat to them.
Yes.
Why? The Muslim activists, those who understand the systems of the world, those who understand what's going on, those are the people who realize that, okay, what is the real game being played in the world? What are the role of these companies, corporations, capitalism? How it exploits people,
And what is
people,
the
right?
what is the
So,
system organization?
the thing is, what I want people to understand is that, so they have created a type of Islam which, for instance, for the longest time, you were not allowed to speak about politics in the masajid. Now things are changing. Even here, you were not allowed to, brother, don't talk about politics in the khutbah, don't talk about politics in the masjid, this and that. Well, now, like I gave khutbah today, Yeah, I was talking about the situation in India, for instance. I was saying, how are we supposed to not know what is going on over there, right?
Yeah.
There are people who do know, and they are resisting this, and those who are resisting it are put in certain categories, extremists, this, that, whatever, because you don't want to create a situation where there's a barrier between the Muslim activists who know what's going on, and to make sure that there's a barrier so that the population doesn't just goes into crazy revolt against the French Revolution. I mean, against the French themselves.
Yeah, they have, from their perspective, they would have to do damage control.
I mean,
to
man,
preserve their system.
you're talking about even what has this given to them? I went to an area, you have an area, a village. Children don't, what they do is they take, like paper like this, they make a round thing, literally like a round cone type of thing.
Yeah.
And they'll take, if there is meat being, because we slaughtered a few sheep.
Yes.
They'll take some meat, they'll put it in that in cone thing that they made, and they put it in their pocket, and they eat that meat, this much meat, for days. They'll take a piece all day long, like it's candy. They'll cut a piece and they'll put it, and he's chewing on it, he's chewing on it for days. And these are mostly students who are studying in Islamic madaris and things like this.
May Allah grant them Jannatul Firdaus and success in their efforts. So one other question that we have is, how can we help or support aid work that is being done in Mali? Does the Islamic Oasis have any projects there?
Yes, we have many projects that we are running there. But before I go to the projects, again, I look, one thing that we must understand: charity work does not solve these type of problems that we are talking about, right? Colonialism will not be uprooted due to charity work. That's not what's going to happen. That's not how colonialism and the colonialists are not removed from lands by charity work. So there has to be actual understanding that people have to have in order to understand what our problems are, so that we can actually work. Number one, educate yourself. Understand the difference between, for instance, I'll give you one of the persons. I know somebody was asking a question. Oh, the Muslims were also colonizing things. This type of propaganda that's there. Think about it for a second. Muslims have a system. Capitalism has a system too. Communism also has a system. We're talking about systems because the world needs a system, right? Any nation needs a system to live by. Yes. You need how are you going to organize your affairs?
How does society develop?
How should a society develop? How should you grow, right? How do you organize the country? What is the system that is going to run the affairs of that country? So either it will be Islam, or capitalism, or communism. Those are the only three ideologies that we see in the world today. So whatever name that you give it, democracy and all of this, we are seeing it's very clear what democracy has brought to Mali, right?
Yes.
But so it's very important that people understand. You study the systems. This is for Muslims and non-Muslims. You study the systems and study without bias.
Yes.
Look at the Islamic system, and you tell me, does Islamic system exploit the people as capitalism and communism exploited their masses? Communism failed. It was removed by the masses because it was not accepted, because it went against the instinct of human beings, which is that there is a creator, the belief. Capitalism today, people are sick and tired of it. The whole world, there is a war. Everywhere you go, there's exploitation, hunger. People are dying of hunger where there is plenty.
Yeah.
Yes. Right? Where there is plenty. It's not like, okay, there's not enough. What are you going to do? In lands where it's plenty, where resources are more than 80, 90 tons of gold a year.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to be like, you don't have to be even literate to understand that something is majorly wrong.
So study the systems, and you say, what system do you want to be run by? A system that exploits you, or a system that serves you?
And subhanAllah, like every single person can make this distinction in their mind, that they can figure out what is the benefit as long as they think about it. As
Right.
long as they think about it and they ponder over
And this
it.
is why
Right?
we
So
invite the people to study Islam as a system,
yes.
right? And we invite the ulama. Believe me, it's so. I mean, I'm so tired of it. I want to invite the ulama, the Muslim ulama, to to talk about the Islamic system and the justice of Islamic system,
Yeah.
so that people see the difference between a child, right? 1 out of 10 children dying in a country that is the third largest producer of gold.
Yeah, and if you're talking about like dawah work from that perspective as well, right? People don't like to just hear like theories or ideas that are based only on like logic and they have no basis in real life, right? This is what's important for us to realize as well. Islam has it shows the results. The results are there in Islam's history, in just the merit of the idea of the system itself. So it's very important that we are educated in this aspect. So I want to go over just a quick rapid fire some other questions, right? Because we are approaching our end. So what is the Islamic history of Mali, Sheikh? Do you have any just some quick bullet points for us?
I mean, that I will leave that to Sheikh Usman.
Yeah.
Inshallah, we will get Sheikh Usman next time. I
Alright,
think
inshallah.
because of the time difference, it was a killer for him. And I know he was giving a khutbah in another region of Mali, and then sometimes he's driving 2-3 hours to go give khutbah there,
Yeah.
and then come back. I spoke to him just 2 hours before, and he told me, man, just if I'm out, just call me. And we've called him a couple of times. But I understand.
Alright, inshallah, we can do another.
If not, if he's in Mali till December, and we are working on another conference that is going to talk about all of these issues from the people who are on the ground, inshallah.
Okay,
So we
so
leave the issue of Islamic, how Islam entered Mali, or how Islam entered Africa in general, to Sheikh Usman, inshallah.
okay, so this should be one of the last questions, right? Like 2 more questions, right? So is it true that many of the students that attend Islamic schools in the world are orphans? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the statistics. I don't know, like exact numbers of how many, but I can, in some ways, you could probably say many do, because majority of the madaris back home, whether it's Pakistan or India or Mali, wherever you go to, most of these madaris are actually students who are studying them. Yeah, that's true. Many of them are orphans. Many of them, here is the problem, right? Either many of them are orphans, and at the same time, many of them are, let's say, if he couldn't study engineering and he couldn't somehow make it in his medical school, and he couldn't make it in business world, so then they put him in a madrasa, and so the guy goes to the madrasa, and he's got to do something, and then he memorizes some Quran, and he becomes. Imagine, these are the type of people who couldn't make it anywhere, and then all of a sudden that person, not everyone, of course, we're not talking about. I'm talking about what are the populations. Either you see geniuses, people who are sincere, very sincere. That includes Sheikh Usman. If you look at background of Sheikh Usman and how Sheikh Usman is one of those people who memorized the Quran, and he can write the Quran he wrote the Quran.
Yeah, I was listening to one of.
He wrote the Quran, meaning from Surah Fatiha to An-Nas. He could write it. That's how well they memorized the Quran. Right? I think you either have geniuses, or you have people who couldn't do anything in any other sector, so they put them there. And unfortunately, many of those who are running the masajid are those type of people who couldn't make it anywhere else. So then he is just an imam. He reads the salah. He doesn't understand the situation of the world. He doesn't understand what is going on. Many times he can't even read any other language or whatever. And then those are the type of people that are running the masajid. And then the rest of the world says, oh, look, these are the imams, and the imams, look at what does he know?
Stark contrast to like how the masajid were before, where it's just like it was a place of discussion, of meeting, of conversation, center of learning. So inshallah, like I have one last question here. So or I guess it's not so much a question, but rather a comment that a lot of us should think about, and inshallah we can benefit from it. So somebody was I think this is when we were talking about like the situation of what the schools are like in Mali, where we're talking about the story where it's a blonde French woman above the on top of in the class, and then like the ideas that are discussed in the classroom as well. That capitalism is the best system. That's those types of things, right? So this comment came around, I think that time it was, well, sadly, even the view of the ummah. Or yeah, go ahead. Sorry,
you'd be surprised that they won't even teach them capitalism properly.
Yeah.
Because if they were to teach them even capitalism properly, you would have a competition on your hand.
Yes,
Right?
I mean,
so what you want is you want completely slave-minded people. Only thing that they say is yes sir, yes sir. Those are the type of people that they want. Because believe me, if I always say to even these foolish rulers that we have, right? May Allah end their days for us. When you talk to those people, I tell them, at least for God's sake, if you're going to implement capitalism and democracy, at least be a real capitalist.
Yeah. Still, everything is like they're taking all the businesses.
At least
products,
I mean, if you're going to adopt
ideas.
kufr, be sincere to at least kufr. You know?
So the question is, well, sadly, even the view of the Muslim Ummah towards African Muslims has allowed such discrimination to take place. So this was the comment that was coming out when we were talking about the situation of the classrooms in Mali, that this is the ideal. The ideal is the
but we have
society.
allowed that, right?
Yeah.
We have allowed that. Why isn't that one kid can't find the guts in himself to go and take a picture of that filthy woman and remove it and just just crush it? Why wouldn't they do that? Right? Why wouldn't they do that? Yeah, see, that itself shows the education system being thought there, right? Yeah. What are they being taught that nobody can find the guts to stand up and say why is it that we're supposed to look up to that thing as our example, and half-naked women up there? That's our example. You're talking. Yeah. You're in a country that is 95% Sunni Muslim, right? And then you want us to look at a kafira, who forgot how to wear a dress properly, and you put her as an example for the masses to look at. Meaning they're building the next generation to be something that they can't ever be. What are they going to do? Remove their skin off of their body? Because is that what they're going to do? Is that what they're telling you to do? You can never be like us.
Subhanallah, this is the Muslims really need to wake up in that they adopt that way of thinking, that whether it's like based on racism or just like nationalism or just different systems, capitalism, right? Just the ideas that the kuffar bring to the Muslims, right? We cannot adopt this way of thinking, because the more that we adopt that, then we're pretty much just playing into their game. We're feeding. That's into colonialism, and this is exactly what this is haram.
It's haram, but that's colonialism. Look,
it says
I just want you to understand something here, right? Look, you talk about colony. What is a colony? It's a limited areas that are controlled by countries. I don't know if the people have seen the actual map I don't know if you could actually put the map of Mali on there. This is a country that has straight lines.
It's really
the map scary. Of Mali. How in the world does natural borders? How do natural borders are straight lines?
Yeah, it's like surgical precision.
Look, the brother is putting how is that possible that if these were natural borders? So I'll give you an example. When I was in Mali, Sheikh Usman was telling me, he said, look, man, what happened is they took a what do you call this, scale or a ruler, and literally just drew the line. And you can see that when you look at the map, right? Literally like this, and they drew the darn thing. So all of a sudden, overnight, families who were living on this side became Senegalians, and this side became Malians. Overnight, this happened. Look at the country.
It's another thing for in terms of history.
Here's the thing.
Not the case.
The point that I'm actually trying to make here,
obviously.
The point I'm trying to make though, is that they drew these lines, right? What we call look. That's Mali. Imagine the lines there. How does a natural border have a straight line like this?
It's a right angle right there.
Right angle. Literally, it seems like he said, okay, let me put the right angle here. Boom, boom. This is yours. And on the top of that, what they did is by creating these borders, they created limitations, right? So the people can't think outside the box. Hold on. The people can't think outside the box. The people can't, you're stuck thinking within those borders that were created, right? And a live example of that is the Muslims of India nowadays, right? You look at the Muslims of India nowadays, they have been stuck. They're stuck in India. They have forgotten that they are part of the rest of the Ummah of Islam, right? They are part of the Muslim Ummah, Pakistan and Bangladesh and the Arab world and Central Asia, right? What? The map? I mean, look
This
at
is
that
the
map
map right
there.
here.
I mean,
Yep.
they
There
actually
you
put
go.
the map. I mean, look at those maps. When you're talking about those, I mean, how much more funny can it get? I mean, how do you draw a 90-degree? This is the map.
Yeah, there's one thing to be said for like the divide and conquer aspect of it, but this is it's important to say exactly what you're saying, right? Like it's everybody should be thinking about this, right? This nationalism. First of all, in the situation in Mali, it's obvious that they did not create those borders themselves. This is not like how they divided their land. This is how it was divided for them with surgical precision. And then afterwards, everybody who lives in this like this polygon shape that they created, they are going to be Mali. They should have pride that they live
Yes.
in the country of Mali, in the
Yes.
Republic of Mali,
Yes.
because they are Mali, not because of Islam or any other idea.
And literally, those borders were created for location. So they needed to
Yes,
figure
exactly.
out how do you, like piece by piece, right? It's too big of a cake to take the whole cake and put it in your mouth. So what do? You cut the cake in pieces so that you can put it in your mouth, that it actually fits in your mouth, and you can chew it and you can actually observe it, things like that, right? It goes into your stomach. So literally what they did to the Muslim world. And you look at all of Africa. I mean, it's funny. You find country within a country.
Mm-hmm. With the, I mean,
you look
Guinea,
at Sierra
right?
Leone.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole of Africa today, right? What's there's a famous call. What is it called? The something of Africa, right? What is it called? The very famous book, very famous colonial term. What is
the
that?
Scramble for Africa.
The scramble
for Africa.
I mean, this is literally the scramble, right?
Yes.
The Italians are there, the French are there, now the Americans are there, the British are there. Everybody's scrambling because you're talking about continent is one of the richest continents on the face of the earth.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about dividing an entire continent. This is like.
So this is the history of colonization and the colonial history in the Muslim world and in whether it's Africa or whether it's and one thing that you have to keep in mind, Africa is Muslim.
Yes.
Africa is a Muslim continent. Majority of the percentage of the continent is Muslim, and that's the same story by the way of Somalia. That's the same history of all of that area. If you look at all of the North Africa, wherever part of the Africa you go there, you see till today the exploitation that is taking place. Subhanallah.
Yeah. So subhanallah, like a lot of things that the Muslims really need to wake up out of this sleep, because you cannot sleep forever. You cannot sleep forever. The Ummah will not sleep forever. In reality, it will.
But it's a job of people like us, you and I. It's a job of teachers, activists, scholars, aware people like you and I to wake the Ummah up. This is our job. And the thing is, because no one else will do it. Because majority of those people who are being given screen time, who are being given, these what do you call this? These resources or this platforms.
Yeah.
Who are they?
Yeah.
The people who are going to come and talk the language of the colonialists.
Yeah. And that's exactly
that's the agenda. That's what they want. But in actual, real conversations that are talking about real issues that are taking place, they will not be bought. And unfortunately, it's majority of the non-Muslims who actually even talk about this type of these type of subjects. Subhanallah.
So with that, I think Jazakallah, we can end the stream. Jazakallah khairan for joining us. Please remember to subscribe. We would greatly appreciate it. And if you could show your support, spread this stream, these types of videos, these types of ideas. We want to spread them to basically your Muslim brothers and sisters, people that you know, so that we can become aware of the situation of the Ummah internationally. With that being said, Jazakallah khairan.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
سبحان منزله بليلة قدره درب الهداية واضح التبيان يتلوه أحمد للدنا وهي التي عطشت لقطر هداية هتاني. سبحان منزله بليلة قدره درب الهداية واضح التبيان. يتلوه أحمد للدنا وهي التي عطشت لقطر هداية هتاني. غابت به وزهت بنبت زروعه حسنا وآتت أكلها بتداني. لو كان أنزل فوق طود شامخ لرأيته متصدع الأركان.